Welcome to Rise, Healer, Rise, the podcast where your transformative journey as a healer takes flight. We're here to guide you on a sacred path of embracing your essence and transforming your sensitivity into strength. Are you a healer, an empath, a creative soul, or a leader who has a deep desire to share your gifts and create an abundant life that honours the beauty of our earth? In a world that's calling out for healing, your unique gifts are more needed than ever. But how do healers, creative souls, and leaders of our new earth maintain their spiritual connection while navigating the material realm? The answer lies within you, and I believe in your power to rise up and navigate the challenges that lie ahead. The key to unlocking your full potential lies in sharing your healing tools, and just by doing this, you invoke divine right protection. Inside this podcast, we explore nature-based methods to clear trauma, cultivate sacred essence, and share your gifts to create a significant impact and thrive as a modern-day healer. Join me, Sarah Estelle, your host, flower essence expert, high priestess and business guide, for content that soothes your soul and sparks inspiration. At full moon, we welcome a special guest to impart their wisdom. Together, we rise, heal and transform. So embrace your essence. Honor the abundance of Gaia. You are source. You are limitless. The world awaits your light. Rise, healer, rise. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Sally Arthurs, founder of Beyond the Pattern, Creating Conscious Change. Sally helps people uncover and gently release the hidden patterns that keep them feeling stuck, often without even realizing where those patterns begin. Through her work, she brings awareness to pre- and perinatal trauma and how these earliest experiences can silently shape our reactions, behaviours and choices. Drawing on intuitive guidance, vibrational essences and soul-level healing, she offers simple yet profound pathways of transformation. Her message is one of hope and possibility, that you don't have to relive the pain or know the full story to create change. Instead, with awareness and choice, you can reclaim harmony, ease, and a deeper connection to your own wisdom. Okay, welcome Sally to Rise, Healer, Rise. Thank you for joining me today. So Sally is a very dear friend and colleague of mine, so I'm really happy to be here with you today, Sally, and share with everybody who listens the beautiful work that you now do. So I've had the privilege of watching you, that's really not the right word, but of being by your side for quite a few years now and seeing you getting closer and closer and closer. And now you've totally nailed it with what you're sharing now, and I know it's completely from your heart and soul. So you are the founder of Beyond the Pattern, Creating Conscious Change. Yeah. So tell us, for people being drawn to listen, what does that mean, and what is the life beyond the patterns that you now speak about?
Well, thank you for sharing and having me here, Sarah. Beyond the pattern, we all have default patterns. They are created for many reasons, for safety reasons. We adopt patterns and we learn how we adapt to different situations, and that these patterns are absolutely fine. It's not an issue. But when we have patterns that are formed through painful situations, then that becomes more of a problem. And the patterns in particular that I work with, that I've worked deeply with myself and that I work with clients, are patterns that are created in the very earliest stages of our lives, sometimes even in the womb before we're born. And these patterns are generally, they're created as a mechanism to keep us safe. But when they start becoming something that holds us back from what we want to do, then they do become an issue. And it's a bit like when you want to do something different, when you want to grow as a person in a relationship, if you're trying to further your career in whatever way, shape, or form that might be, then we often have that underlying fear. And we all know we have it. It's like, oh my God, am I good enough to do this? Am I this, that, and the other? But when your patterns are created very, very deeply, when you get to that stage, you find yourself self-sabotaging. You default into that pattern of behaviour that literally stops you in your tracks from taking those next steps, whether it be that you've got to perfect an email for 6 weeks and have actually missed the deadline, excuse me, of when you should be sending it, or whether that is how you react to other people. You might become slightly more defensive than you would like to be. And that stops you from creating the connection with the person that would then take you on to the next level. And it's all very subtle, very, very subtle, but often you find that you might kick yourself afterwards. You think, why did I say that? Why did I do that? That's me done that again. It's all those kind of words that go through your mind. And that's when you kind of begin to realise that there is a pattern there. And it's infuriating. It plagues the life out of you because you know that you've done it. You don't want to do it. But here we are again. You've done it. But it doesn't need to be that way. When we begin to unravel where the patterns come from and we have that little bit of awareness, then it brings a pause. It brings that pause that you can think about what your next step is. You can think before you speak. You can be aware that you're procrastinating on that email. So therefore, you think, okay, well, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's just send it as is. So it's just those tiny little steps. And every step that we take to change a pattern, we can embody that and we can actually begin to make that conscious change. So therefore, we don't need to be held back by things that we've developed when we were in a very young space where literally it was survival.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, and it's the subtlety, isn't it? I think what we both share together is our experience personally and then professionally of dealing with the more subtle realms. But it is that subtle pieces that make all the shift, isn't it? Because they're the things that are sitting just beyond the conscious mind.
Oh, it is, yeah. And the more subtle they are, obviously, the more of a problem they can be. It's a bit like if you have a really serious situation, a huge serious named situation, a trauma or anything that you have to deal with. It's almost like you go into, you run that pattern where you think, right, okay, there's a bus coming towards me. I need to make this decision to get out of the way of the bus. So you almost go into overdrive in action, but it's with these subtle patterns. They just lie under the surface and they create us to do little things that just hold us back. And big things we can deal with admirably, little things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little things driving those big things, isn't it? And they're like all the little waves in the sea that mount up to be the big wave. So everywhere we go right now, we hear the word trauma. It's like everywhere. And it's like just hearing the word trauma is just like, oh, it kind of creates that tiny in our system where it's already traumatized. So, and we are talking about here about trauma from the very start, not just when we were in the womb, but, like the pulse that created us. So we could go a bit spiritual and woo-woo, and I don't think we're going to, because you are that, but it's not really the work that you do. So why is pre? Well, first of all, tell us what the difference between pre and perinatal trauma is, because just in case people don't realise. And why is it not more spoken about?
Okay. Prenatal trauma is generally classed as the trauma that we can experience while that would be during conception. Even pre-conception, sometimes it's the patterns in our parents and beyond. And if we remember that the egg that we originate from is actually created in our grandmother's womb, then and it lives in our mother throughout her life. So we actually absorb a lot of echoes, a lot of energetic echoes. So the prenatal takes in that, and it takes in everything up till and around about birth, when it then becomes perinatal. And you have the shifts that become obvious in the mum and baby just before baby's born. Then we have the birth itself, which can be quite traumatic for both parties. And then we have the first couple of years of life. And this is where it becomes grey. Some people say anything up to 4 years. Some people say it's the first year. But it's basically the first years of life when we have less of an understanding of language and we're more likely to experience things viscerally. We feel them. And when we feel something in our bodies, we understand that feeling, but we don't actually know where they came from. And I think that is actually underpins everything, because it's that feeling in our body. We don't consciously know what's happened at these stages or why we've experienced them as trauma. And obviously trauma is subjective, because both you and I could experience what I would say would be a traumatic event, and it would be like water off a duck's back to you. You would then think, it wasn't that bad. What's the issue? And we experience it differently because we both had different life experiences up to that point.
Absolutely.
But it's this experienced in the body. And the example that I tend to use with clients is that if we look at the baby of a very young mum who has possibly fallen pregnant when she's very young, she's not with a partner, she has to tell her family. So there's all that stress and worry within her. And we go through all the talk about whether baby's wanted, whether baby's not wanted. Baby experiences this on some level, not on a conscious level, and it's never actually, mum's never actually meant to cause any harm to the baby. And I will say that there is no blame, there is no, let's not blame and shame parents or blame and shame children for being overly sensitive. It is what it is. There are things that are experienced and they're felt within the cells of the body. And when something then tips at a later date, it trauma builds. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there was a trauma as such, but it's been experienced as feeling traumatic.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's kind of brought in that kind of takes us into the realm actually of why it's often not spoken about and not understood. Because it is so subtle. Mum might not have thought there was anything untoward that went on. And as we don't have real recollections of what happened to us or what we experienced in the womb or when we were born. So it's all that very grey area. So yeah, it's very, very subtle. And as I say, the problem with it is that it predisposes us to, if we experience anything that feels like that again, we hold on to that. And it's a bit like we build the trench and our bodies learn how to protect us from feeling like that. And it's the patterns that we use to cope with that then go on to cause us issues in various areas of our life.
That's really clear, Sally, and it reminds me of one of your core messages, really, which is we all have these patterns, all of us. Nobody is immune to any of this, and that there is absolutely no judgment either because of that. I know personally myself the power of this, and I don't have children of my own. And so if there are women listening who don't have children, it's us too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If anything, it's all about doing our work. It's about working on ourselves, and everybody has been born. There's nobody on the planet that hasn't experienced pregnancy and birth for themselves. They might not have children. I mean, men have this trauma too.
Exactly.
And it's just, and I actually hate the word trauma because it kind of infers that something horrible happened, which isn't the case. And I found my trauma as part of doing the diploma with you, Sarah. And the weird thing was I had this huge abandonment issue and I had a wound of abandonment, and I had no idea where it came from. Because if I look superficially at my own birth story, I was born, my mum and dad had issues with fertility. I was born 9 years into their marriage. So it was like I was much wanted. And I was like, I've always been wanted. My experience is of being wanted and I've not been abandoned, but I had this real issue. And when the digging began, if the first aspect was that I was actually born prematurely. So as soon as I was born, as was the way back in the 1960s, I was taken straight away from mum, and I didn't see her again for 4 weeks. There was no parental contact for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So really in reality to my body and my energy system, I was abandoned when I was born.
Absolutely.
It wasn't mum's fault. I was being taken away for my own good, for health reasons. But at the same time, there was that abandonment issue. And I would go on to uncover more of my own story and how that was even more deeply entrained throughout what had happened before I was born. My mum had a really traumatic late miscarriage, probably just about a year before I was born. So the fear that she carried of that happening again meant that she didn't fully connect with me in the womb because she was terrified of losing me.
Yeah.
But then that is experienced by me, excuse me, on some level as being not welcome, not wanted.
Yes, yes.
And you can see how that's a total misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of trauma that we're talking about. And some people think, oh, I've got no trauma in my family. Everything's rosy. And it was for me as well. But there are these subtle undercurrents that cause, for me, it was how I connected with people.
Yeah.
That was an issue. So that has kind of followed me throughout my life. And it's these subtle things, it's not the big things, and it's not, it's not about saying mum's done anything wrong, dad's done anything wrong. There's nothing wrong in it. It's lived experience that has been processed in a way when we had literally no understanding of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm really pleased that you shared that about yourself as well. I had forgotten that. I've heard you share it before through our shared connections, but it's powerful, powerful. And so many of us have had experiences like that. As you say, I have done this work myself as far as I can at this moment. And I too had a childhood that was just like, yeah, had food, had school, had holidays, I didn't not have, but it's all woven in there, all of us. So let's talk about, maybe you could name some of these common, like tiny but huge at the same patterns. What are the biggest ones that you hear about? If you could just name a few general ones. Not that they're ever general, but ones you hear most about.
Yeah, probably one of the huge ones is self-sufficiency. And I know that seems like a really admirable trait, but when we do it at our own expense, when we refuse to let other people in to help us, when we do everything ourselves, And that in itself creates other patterns, because when we do everything ourselves, we're doing it because often in these cases, because it's our way of how we've learned to micromanage things, is by, if we control everything, then, you know, we are directing the way that things go. If we give that over to somebody else, we're leaving ourselves in that space where we feel vulnerable. So therefore we take control. And this is a huge one that I see with clients. And it's like, but then it becomes, nobody ever does anything for me. I feel as though I'm the one that's got to do everything. But we can't see that we're the ones that refuse the help and bulldoze in and do everything. So there then becomes that issue. And the more and the deeper that the patterns become, the more complicated and complex that they're woven. As I say, first of all, it begins that you're micromanaging, you feel safe, but then you kind of close people off when you don't allow them to help you. Or then people then don't come in to help you because they realise that you don't want help, even though you're screaming behind the pattern that you feel in the weight of having to do everything, and you really want somebody to say, let me do that for you. But there becomes that complexity.
I know some of the people that love to work with you are women who have their businesses, who work for themselves. And this is a huge pattern there, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Especially people who work in the more sort of empathic professions, where they're already holding a lot of energy themselves, and then they're holding all the structures as well. I mean, I can put my hand up to a lot of these myself. So it is huge.
It is, yeah. And it's all the other areas that it then kind of spreads into, because it's you then become self-critical sometimes. So this obviously we teach what we know ourselves. So every pattern that a client comes to me with, no doubt I have it to some degree myself. And have worked on, and I'm still working on, because it's always a work in progress. But it's almost like when you've got that, then you become self-critical, and when you become self-critical, then it becomes about perfectionism, and perfectionism then actually becomes procrastination, because you can't do anything because you're not going to be good enough. You need to learn X, Y, or Z before you do this. You can't do the live video before you've gone and had your hair done, and you can't get that done for 3 weeks, so you miss that opportunity. There's a million things, and it's all the things that we tell ourselves about it, and they really hold us back.
It's maybe one of the things, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. In my own entrepreneurial journey, I have realized that the women or men that I am most attracted to work with myself, to receive support myself, are those who turn up as not perfect.
Yeah.
Because I really admire that trait in somebody else, that they can just turn up, without their hair done or whatever, whatever the pattern is. That's just an example. Just turn up.
And you possibly then are saying that you struggle to turn up that without being the perfect version of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all wait. We all wait for those moments. And yeah, so they're powerful times, and your work, the work that you're doing specifically, talking about this pre and perinatally, is so powerful. So self-sufficiency is one. Is there another pattern you'd like to talk to us about?
There is, now I don't quite know what I would class this pattern as. I see it a lot. I've been there myself. But there's a form almost of stubbornness and inflexibility with other people. It's a bit like you have your point of view, and you stick so rigidly to it. In some areas, you can be absolutely flexible in lots of areas, but when it comes to the thing, you become very stubborn and obstinate about it. And it's a bit like it almost comes down to there's some parts of us that we're so deeply not connected to, but so deeply ingrained in us that we can't, for whatever reason, seem to let them go. And anybody that rocks that boat is actually rocking the rock that we felt safe. It's a bit almost like if you stay in a house with a hole in the roof, but you think that is your place of safety. So if somebody says to you, if you move over here to this house, it's got perfect roof and it's got windows and a door that locks, but you say no, but this is where I feel safe. Even though there's things going on around about you that don't make you feel safe. You're so deeply entrenched in being there that you can't take the chance to move.
Mm-hmm. It's that taking a chance, isn't it? Yeah. The risk of growth.
The risk of growth is one of the most painful there, because we have so many different aspects of ourselves there, because we have the part of us that has experienced the pain and whatever else that comes. If it's been visible, we've maybe been laughed at school, or our parents joked over what we said, things like that. So we have that fear of visibility. It all becomes entrenched. It's bizarre. And it's eye-opening to see it in yourself and to untangle it and to see sometimes where it leads, because there are things that you would never in a million years expect that it would touch on.
Yeah, I know my own experience of this, having done some of the work myself through my work with essences, which is, of course, where you started yours as well. You started your more conscious growth, was when I saw the patterns, I couldn't change them because they had already happened.
Yep.
And the effects of them had already happened. That doesn't mean to say it. And so what it did for me personally was it just brought huge love into the situation.
Yeah.
First and foremost to myself, oh my goodness, I need to really love that little girl inside of me, or love my sisters, or more than I already do. It just brought so much self-compassion and compassion for those who I knew it had touched. And therefore, when I saw or touched or felt the patterns in others, even if they weren't being discussed, I felt that compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think my story, I think probably many, many years ago, I was very intolerant in ways of other people who just couldn't get on and deal with things, because that was my coping mechanism. It was like, well, you just turn up, you do it, you do the thing, doesn't matter, you do it and you get on with it. And I kind of was maybe very intolerant of people that couldn't do that. But through joining the diploma, the pattern that I found, as I say, I was ready, and I've spoken about this many times, I was ready to walk away from all healing modalities. I'd had enough. Didn't want to do it anymore. Couldn't do it, wasn't for me. But I decided to do the diploma for myself. And that pattern, that giving up pattern, that, oh, it's too hard, it's too difficult, can't push myself to be more visible, can't do this, that, and the other. That was the pattern. And it was almost like the pattern led me to the doorway for that. And through that doorway, I found the ways that the pattern was playing out, although I didn't recognise it as a pattern at the time.
That's the beautiful thing about growth, isn't it? It's like, if we look in nature, and we'll start talking about nature in a second with your essences, but there's the fractal nature of growth and how it goes from the seed, and then it starts to move into bud form, and it just changes. And then it falls, it goes into flower or whatever the plant is, and then we'll fall back to earth to begin all over again. But it's in those fractals within fractals within fractals is where the seeds of the next piece are held. So what you and I brought forward from our mothers had been brought forward from our grandmothers.
Yeah.
And that you have gifted, if you like, to your children, and they will gift on whether or not they go on to have children. You know, it's those beautiful fractal patterns in our lineage, which is fascinating. So I'm going to start to digress if I talk any more about that. So if somebody wanted to experience working with you, what happens? What does it look like?
It's a very gentle process. They would fill in a consultation form that, to all intents and purposes, would feel possibly like any other modality, maybe with a little bit more focus on family things and health and well-being. But it would all be very mainstream. And we would just literally show up and have a chat after that. And from that, and often people find that they tell me things that they hadn't thought about previously or haven't said to anybody before. I'm able to hold that space that just seems to bring what needs to be said to the surface. And then we just look at that gently. It's not about reliving experiences. It's not about having to know what the issue is. It's literally just what they feel they need to speak about, and how they speak about it then informs me intuitively of where we need to go with this. And between that, we just find ways to bring that awareness to them that this is the pattern that they're working with. And even just with that awareness, I mean, often people say to me that even just by filling in the form, they feel the process beginning, because they've had to think about something in a specific way.
Absolutely, yeah.
So no, it's nothing harsh, it's not scary, and it's not about digging up anything painful.
I think, well, that's it, isn't it? Again, the pattern reaches us. In fact, it's already begun just by us talking here, you know, and people who are listening, who are meant to take this next step, it's already begun.
Yeah.
And so we just get closer and closer and closer, and we start to change it. I think one of the biggest things that's missing in our world right now is being listened to. I think it's over sometimes, what's the word? Underestimated. Is that the right way around? It's just being listened to is huge. And so filling out a consultation form is being listened to.
Yeah.
And then meeting.
And almost listening to ourselves when we do it, because we often don't listen to.
Those are the biggest shifts, and we just have that reflective pattern. And then the magical piece is, these are my words, not yours, is that you then, the person working with you, if they wish to, receives a bottle of essences from you. So tell us about your essences, Sally, and how different they are.
I do have a normal range of essences that help with all the patterns that I've experienced. So technically, they're more aligned to the people that come to me, because you're drawn to the people who have similar experiences, even if you may not know that at the beginning. So yeah, they're all sort of tested for these patterns, which is quite interesting to look back on, because I didn't have a clue when they were arriving, some of them many years ago, that is what they would be for. And in particular with this work, I do have a range of essences called the Orchid Collective. And the orchids are amazing plants to work with. They are so different to normal flowers, and almost liken them to, if normal flowers are angelic beings, then the orchids are the archangels. They have more standing, they have a stronger presence, and they really hold us. They have that real holding space when we work with them. And I'm currently developing ways where they work together for different parts of the process. If, for instance, if we have experienced birth issues, then there's specific essences that relate to that and will be more appropriate for that period. So yeah, I'm working on a different process with them at the moment.
Fascinating. Wow. Very, very beautiful. So people come to you, they experience meeting you, obviously online, so people can work wherever they live. And then as a result of that, if they wish to, they receive a bottle of specially chosen essences from you.
Yeah.
And then that process is obviously held as they experience that. So what a beautiful, beautiful process. Thank you for sharing with us, Sally. So if anybody was interested in going, working with Sally or finding out more about what she does, people can come to your website or your social media presence. Now, all of this information is in the show notes, but would you just like to share them now?
My Facebook page is just Sally Arthurs. You can look up Sally Arthurs Beyond the Pattern. And also my website is www.sallyarthurs.com. And you will find ways there where you can contact me or further information on what I do there.
Yeah. One last question for you. Is it ever too late to change these patterns?
It's never too late. We are constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. I didn't begin on these, working on my own patterns, probably till late 40s. So had I wish I'd started earlier? Yes. But then if I had started earlier, I might not have experienced some of the strengths that I've developed as part of that. But no, it's never ever too late. And I'm consciously, continuously evolving my own patterns because we take them layer by layer. We don't become different people. We're not aiming to be anything different. We're literally just removing bit by bit. It's a bit, if you have a pile of rubble on your driveway and you can't drive out, you remove a little bit, and eventually you can drive out easier. You might not need to remove it all to be able to drive over or around it, but the aim is to make the drive out as easy as possible. So
get out the drive.
Yeah.
without destroying the car or yourself in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually quite apt when we discuss the patterns, without destroying yourself or anything else in the process. Yeah,
just quietly but powerfully working on ourselves. It's powerful. Well, thank you so much, Sally, for everything you shared today, and thank you for the beautiful work you do, for having the courage at that moment when you decided not to give up. You followed, because that's often it, isn't it? At different stages of our life, we get the little whispers inside of us and we go, no, I can't do that. We argue with ourselves, but actually, when we actually sit with the pattern or with whatever's manifesting, creating in ourselves, we do know the way.
We do, and it's just finding ways that makes it more comfortable for us to do it.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you ever so much for sharing today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I want to remind you that your journey is a sacred one. You are not alone on this path of transformation. I, Sarah Estelle, and all of the Nature Kingdom are here with you, holding space for your growth and celebrating each step you take towards embracing your true essence. If you love today's content, leave us a review on your favourite podcast listening platform and share your biggest takeaway. And do visit the show notes of this episode, where you'll find extra resources to support you. Also, come and join our Rise Healer Rise community on Facebook and be part of a rising wave of healers who are empowered change makers. And make sure you subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, may you always remember, you are the healer the world has been waiting for. Rise, healer, rise.